Hi, Barbie. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and be a part of your show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so thankful you were able to be here. Do you want to tell us about you?
Sure. About me. So I am Barbie Ingle and I do so many different things in life. But one of those is being an author. I've published 9 books and a couple of them are bestsellers. And I also have done reality television and I run a nonprofit foundation. I'm an editor of I Pain Living magazine. I am also a patient myself. And so I like helping other patients, but it all started because I am a patient and have been for over 20 years now. And that kind of got me into the health world and the health side of things. And when I didn't get proper and timely care, I wanted to make sure that I could help other people get proper and timely care. And once I learned the system and how to navigate the minefield, I started sharing that with other people. So I get pretty vulnerable sharing all the things that I share, but I know that it's helping society and humanity. And so I love to share all of those things. And I do so many things. I am a cheerleader of hope. I used to be a physical cheerleader. And because of all of the health challenges that I face, I had to readjust my life and overcome those challenges as best I could. And I did that by becoming a mental cheerleader instead of a physical cheerleader. So everything I do is kind of under the cheerleader umbrella, but not your typical cheerleader. And, and physically, I'm not doing anything cheerleading anymore, but mentally, I am all about positivity and finding the way that something can work. And if it doesn't work the first way, you just keep on going, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you keep going until you find the way to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. And so instead of saying I'm a human being, I say I'm a human doing.
Nice. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of things.
Yeah. So I did pick up your book
Yeah.
right
Awesome. Thank you.
here,
Yep.
and you are so honest in that book. Thank you so much for being so honest. I know we chatted about this real quick before we started recording. I'm so grateful when people are honest about that, because until you're in that situation, you don't have a way to know unless people like you are willing to have the bravery to say, look, this is the reality. This is what happens.
Yeah. And I didn't even know that I was facing all of these challenges and was going to go through everything I went through. I was living life. I was on top of the world. I had limousines. I coached at Washington State University, and I would rent limousines when we would go out and say, all right, give my student athletes something fun to do and have, a good time and in between football games and basketball games and all the activities we were doing, I'd be like, let's go do something fun, because I could. And I took life for granted in so many ways. I wasn't doing anything bad. I just wasn't living life to the fullest with meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from that down to food stamps, welfare. Didn't I literally lost my marriage, my house, my ability to drive, all things financial, emotional, physical, and spent almost 7 years in a wheelchair. And I had to climb and crawl and challenge myself to find ways to get out of that. And so that's kind of part of the health journey that I took. But until you need it, you don't always have those skills. So now what I like to do is plant little seeds and talk about things that have helped my life, so that other people, when they need that seed, they can grow it into a tree of knowledge for themselves. And they don't have to have those same challenges and struggles that I have. You shouldn't have to lose everything when you do become chronically ill.
Yeah, I love that idea that you plant a seed and then
Yeah.
when they need it, it grows. That is very cool.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
what a great concept. So now you had RSD.
Yes.
Do you want to just briefly discuss
Yep.
that?
I'll give you the short version. So R stands for reflex. Anything in your body that's automatic goes haywire. So I have gastroparesis, where my stomach stopped contracting. So when I eat food, it can be extremely painful. It sometimes feels like knives are cutting me all the way, not just in my stomach, but all the way down my whole digestive tract. Cardiac ischemia, intestinal ischemia, all secondary to RSD, which is the R is reflex. So those challenges come. Sympathetic is the S. That's your nervous system. It feels like someone put lighter fluid in my veins. It's very difficult to put out. And dystrophy is loss of muscle and bone. So my arm curled up, my foot curled up, and it took 7 years to get the proper treatment that got me up walking and living more life again. So that's why I was in a wheelchair. And then I also had a lot of atrophy just from being in a wheelchair. So, and being bedbound for those 7 years. So RSD, and it's one of the hardest diseases. It's a rare disease. And it took 43 doctors to get diagnosed. And on average, it takes like 5 to 7 doctors. For me, it took 43. And it was because the doctors are not trained like veterinarians. They can look at many species. They do, one veterinarian does surgery on many species and different body parts of all those species. And human doctors are not taught that way. They're taught to look at each individual system of our body. And so for them to spot a rare disease, and there's 7,000 rare diseases, it's very difficult to get a proper, timely diagnosis and get the care that you need very easily. If you do, you're very, very lucky. And for me, yeah, that first 3 years of trying to get diagnosed with that was very difficult. But even before that, I had endometriosis. Mm-hmm. And so I talk about in the book, I went through endometriosis, and that was a challenge and a struggle, but I felt like I conquered the world. Like, yes, I did it. And then this new thing hit, and it was totally, they told me I had whiplash and I'd be better in a few days. And then it just dragged on. And I knew I would not give up my life. Everybody that knew me knew I would not give up my life. And I just couldn't do it. And the more and more I tried to hold on to that life, the harder the struggle got, the harder the challenge got. And I had to find a better way. And so I did that.
Yeah. So one of the big things that you try to teach people, I think one of your main topics, is how to navigate and advocate for yourself in the healthcare system. Yes. So even people, I think as far as seeds go, even people that may not have something chronic right now, they could have something that, even if it's not chronic, it could be long-term. So do you have any advice or thoughts on what they should be doing, or what to look out for, or what to be aware of if they do have to navigate that system?
Well, first, know that you have responsibilities as a patient. Don't just trust and rely on the medical field. You have to learn, research, know, ask, and get involved in your healthcare. That becomes your number one job and priority. And it doesn't pay well, I can tell you that. You pay other people in that job, but it can help you live more life and get help faster, and even invent some things that you need in your life that don't exist yet, which is what I had to do. And being responsible, knowing that you can say no. If a doctor says, this is what I can do for you, and that item, challenge, tool, whatever they try to give you doesn't work, you can say, no, I'm not interested. If that doctor says, this is all I have for diabetes or ankylosing spondylitis or Lyme disease or lupus or whatever thing that you're facing, a broken ankle that you're trying to rehab, whatever it is, if they say, this is all I have, there's other doctors out there that give you other treatment options. You don't have to say, well, then there's no hope for me. I'm just going to lay here and not go further. Take further steps, do research. There's constantly things coming down the pipeline. If you've been doing the same treatment for 5 years or even 3 years, go back and talk to your provider and say, what else is out there? What's coming down the pipeline? If they don't know, research it. We have Google now that has a lot of information. Now, I wouldn't say follow all the advice on Google, because that's just a bad idea. But take that information and go back and have a conversation with your medical professionals about it, so that you can get good guidance. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I don't know about that treatment, but my friend, Dr. Susie, has that treatment option. You can go see her, and she can help you out with that. And that's what a good doctor would do. They would say, I can't do that, but, Dr. Susie does that treatment. So
Yeah.
go to see her, and that type of thing. But know that you have to learn to communicate. Big mistake I made, communication. I literally had to learn a whole new vocabulary. The faster you can pay attention and learn and start using those words. For instance, this pain scale, it drives me crazy. 1 to 10, what's your pain? 1 is the best, 10 is the worst. And people go, well, what if it's a 0? Well, then you're not at the doctor for pain if your pain is a 0. So 0 is not on the scale.
Yeah.
If you're at the doctor, it's a 1 to 10. Now, if the doctor says, what's your pain 1 to 10? And you go, it's 100 because you really want to emphasize you're in pain, literally means nothing to a doctor except for that you exaggerate. They can't help you.
Yeah.
So you have to learn what the numbers on the pain scale mean to the doctor so that you can give them an appropriate number. Things like that, things like knowing your adjectives, being able to describe what I was going through. My first 3 years of RSD, I didn't know the words. All I knew was I was in pain and I needed help. And if I had learned the burning fire pain, if I had learned those adjectives and used them instead of just crying and saying, help me, fix me, and leaving it up to the doctors to figure out, I could have gotten help quicker. I was missing the adjectives. So if your pain feels like a jackhammer, if your pain feels like electrical shocks that are hitting you, or lightning coming out of the sky, or cutting, shooting, stabbing, sharp, dull, those mean different things, and different treatments help them. So the more you can explain what you're going through, the better treatment you're going to get faster.
Yeah. Something I love in the book, and it's just a real quick sentence, but I honed in on it. You mentioned that if you're seeing a doctor that has no connection to a university or research, that should be a concern.
It should be. Absolutely. If the doctor is not connected to a research institute, they don't know what's coming down the pipeline. They probably only offer one treatment, maybe 2. You're not going to get a whole body, well-rounded approach to work on the challenges that you have. Because usually when you have a chronic illness, more than one thing is going wrong. There might be one thing, like burning fire pain was my worst symptom, but I also was passing out. I also had vertigo where everything would flip upside down randomly. I never knew when it was going to hit. And, these types of things seem bizarre to some of the doctors that I saw. But it's because they weren't researchers. They weren't looking at this could possibly be a rare disease. They say in healthcare or in medical school, they tell the doctors, if it looks like a horse and it sounds like a horse, put it in the pasture with the horses. Well, sometimes you're not a horse. Sometimes you're a zebra, or sometimes you're a blowfish, zebra fish combination that it's ultra rare that they really never saw before, but you don't need oxygen, you need water, and they're throwing you out in the pasture with a whole group of horses, and it's just making you worse. So definitely go with the providers that are willing to get continuing education and learn about the conditions. Even if you find a doctor that doesn't know anything about your condition, like my primary care doctor is my co-captain of my team that I put together. He knew nothing about my condition. I taught him, but he was willing to learn. He's connected to a great hospital, and I have his cell phone number. If I need to call him, I can call him anytime, day or night, 2 a.m. Dr. Hummel, I'm vomiting. I don't know why. It just came on. What's going, what should I do? Should I go to the hospital? Am I going to be too dehydrated? What should I do or take or what have you? I can get a hold of him anytime. Okay, he doesn't know about my rare disease. How many doctors do? Not many. But he's willing to work with me and help me get the specialists around us that are able to help us live my life to the best it can be. And it's really important to do that. Don't settle on one doctor and one treatment. Find the best team and use all of the tools at your hands and feet and body and wherever else you need them.
Yeah. So, switching gears a little bit, but we can always come back.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of counseling, big advocate of counseling. And in the book, if I've got this right, you, for many different reasons at many different points, are in counseling. And I'm so supportive of that. I think when you need a tune-up, go to counseling. Go talk to somebody, figure out the mystery, get the missing pieces. Could not advocate for it more. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I have a degree in psychology, so I know the benefits of psychology and talking to somebody and figuring things out and learning the tools. And one of my favorite life tools, I'm going to tell you guys in just a second after I finish telling about going to counseling, I'll tell you what the tool is because you guys can use it in your own lives. But it literally has helped me know, like I was trying a new treatment. The doctors they said, we advise you to go to counseling before you do this treatment, because if this doesn't work, we don't want you to be devastated. We want you to be okay mentally if this doesn't work. So I know you're putting all your eggs in one basket, but we need to make sure you're okay if it doesn't work. But I also used it at the very beginning of what's going on. I'm trying to hold on to all these parts of my life. And the counselor was there to say, even if you don't have this activity in your life anymore, it doesn't take away from who you are. And, throughout the process, I've gone to counseling. Now, I don't advise going to counseling every week for the rest of your life, and you're 20 years old and now you're 70 and you still have the exact same problem. Get a new counselor.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be going for the same thing over and over. You're supposed to go to counseling, learn tools, use them, apply them, practice them with the help of the counselor, and better your life, and then go on. But then you have situational things that come up, like when my father passed away, like my grandparents passed away, my mom passed away, then my father passed away, and I'm all of a sudden the third oldest living person in my family. It's like, that's a moment where you need to talk to somebody when you get to that part of your life. So it really does help you. So to talk to people. Now, the tool that I learned that I still use to this day, and I learned this back in 2002, right after my car accident. I was struggling. I was trying to hold on. And my therapist, his name was Scott, and he taught me the I am. It's not a game. It's just the I am practice where you go. He said, Barbie, go home and write down. This is your homework. Write down all the things that you are and bring that list into our session next week. And I was like, okay. And I want to be a people pleaser and I want to do everything right and do my best. So I went home, and a few days later, he called and said, oh, your appointment's coming up again. I just want to make sure you're doing okay with your homework. And I said, literally, my paper is blank. It has nothing on it. I am nothing. If you take cheerleader away from me, if you take coach away from me, like I've lost everything. I'm nothing anymore. And he said, no, you're so much more. And I'm going to show you, and you're going to be okay. And he said, let's get your list started. And I said, okay. And he said, look, you believe in God, you're spiritual. You might not necessarily be religious, but you're spiritual. And he said, so that can be the first thing. I am spiritual. And that's what I started my list with. And I started seeing that I am I am positive. And he also, in that exercise, we were talking through a few things, and I'm like, yeah, I'm positive, but I'm not. Cause like right now I'm not being positive. I suck. And he was like, well, no, you can be positive and negative at the same time, but focus on the good. What are the good things about you? You're a blessing. You're a giver. You are a perfectionist. You're all these other things. And by the time I got into his office, I had about 50 things written down. By the time I left his office, I was up to 75, and I'm over 150 things on my list of I ams. And I use this, even today, I still use my list. And if I'm having a bad day or I'm doubting myself, I go back and I read my I ams and say, yeah, I am all these awesome things. I am awesome. Like I can do all of this. And I just have to find another way. Break it down into littler pieces. But it doesn't, just because I in this moment and I'm sad, doesn't mean that I am a sad person. It means that I'm going through something and I'm sad for this moment. But it doesn't take away from the human being that I am. And he taught me that. I thank him still to this day, because that was one of the best life lessons that I ever received. And it really does help me get through the challenging times. And being positive doesn't take the pain away, but it helps me get through and helps me stay focused, helps me stay organized, and really helps me live a better life, because I'm able to say, I have value, I have worth, I am somebody.
Yeah, I think that is a really good tool, aside from it's just an amazing tool to begin with. But, sometimes when we hit the rough spots, it's kind of just because we forget who we are.
Exactly.
And it's like, you got a list of 150 things that reminds you literally, I am times 150. That is so cool.
Yeah. But I literally was like, I'm nothing. Like, I was losing everything around me. A 10-year marriage, my job, I had my own cheer and dance training company. Literally everything around me was falling apart, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that is something that like brought me back around to say, even if I don't have all these things, no one can take away. I coached at 3 bowl games, 2 Rose Bowls and a Sun Bowl. Like, there's less than 100 people on Earth that have coached on the Rose Bowl field. I'm one of them. It's pretty cool. And
very
so cool. it's an experience. And the first Rose Bowl, I was able to walk in the Rose Bowl parade. Again, very few people on Earth have participated in a Rose Bowl parade. And the second time I had already been in my accident. It triggered this autoimmune disease, and I was not able to walk in the parade. I stayed on the bus during the parade so that I could have enough energy to get through the game. Because like I said, I was trying to hold on to everything I could, but things were falling apart around me. And but at least I got 2 Rose Bowl games under my belt. So it's pretty special.
Yeah. Okay, so another one of the themes that's in your book, a couple different times actually, but in different ways. The first one, I think, is you talk about when others are helping you to make sure, or to make sure you don't take advantage of them. You're basically like, make a list, and it's almost like negotiation, like, this is what I can do, this is what I need help with. So up front, but then you also discuss it again later. And I think this is with family and friends, and you're like, keep lines of communication open and be upfront about your needs. And in that context, it's, I want to do this with you. I want to mentor you. I want to be a part of this. However, because of my circumstances, I may have to cancel on you. So communication is just a huge topic.
It is huge. And that's the thing. This is one of my best examples for this is I have 7 nephews and 1 niece. So 8 children. And the first 4, I did not communicate. I didn't set the expectation or let them understand. So all they knew was they couldn't make noise around me. They couldn't touch me. They couldn't come around me. They could come around me, but they had to just be perfectly human. They couldn't make noise. They couldn't act up. They couldn't be children around me. And so we have a very not bad relationship, but no relationship. We didn't get to hold on to that. And with the younger 4, I got to talk to with my siblings and say, look, I want to do this different this time. I want to set the expectation and change things and make sure that I have a good relationship with them. And in doing that, I talked to their language. Like, Aunt Barbie has owies. So instead of talking about pain, because up until the age of 6, a child doesn't even understand the word pain, but they understand owie. So when you say Aunt Barbie has an owie, they understand that. I was able to communicate on their level and talk to them. And then when I'm talking to an adult, I can say, hey, I want to come to this party. I want to go to this graduation, but I can't host the party at my house because I might need to leave early. It's too much in the atmosphere. I can't have it. So I'll come to your party as long as I can stay and physically take what it's going to be while I'm there. But I want you to know that even if I'm there 5 minutes or an hour or the whole day, if I'm able to make it, know that I love you and I want to be here. I want to be a part of it. And I'm going to give you everything I can give you in that amount of time. And I'm not leaving because I don't like you or because something's wrong. It's because I physically just can't take the pain and the noise and the people bumping into me or the music or whatever it is. So
that had to change everything.
Yes. Right. And so, but when you go to somebody else's house or to a restaurant or something like that, it's so much easier than the awkwardness of inviting people to your own house to participate in. But when I did, like my older nephews, I would have a candy bowl for them because my immune system is very, very poor. So if you're sick and you have germs, I will get it. So I don't shake hands, I'm very like non-touchy, but I would give them a bowl of candy because all kids love candy, right? And then I would have a bowl for myself and I would say, this is Aunt Barbie's candy. This is your candy. And so they could like eat their candy and have as much as they want and get refills in their bowl, but don't eat my candy.
Yeah.
Like that's my special thing. And like, if we're at a party, I'm going to bring my own cake because I need to have special foods and I need to have, different kinds of candy or whatever. I can't have the germs and all the things that happen at a party. So I do little things like that, but letting the guest or not, you don't have to tell every guest, hey, every guest, I'm special. I have all these challenges. You just let the host know, hey, I'm going to communicate with you. These are the things that I need so that I can come to your party because I love you and I want to be there. And don't get offended when I bring my own piece of cake, and but if you don't tell them that ahead of time, it's offensive. Like, what's wrong with my food? Like, you can't do this or that. Like, they don't get it. But if you can let them know ahead of time, like, don't make a big deal out of it. I'm just going to plate my own food or it's already on my plate. I'm bringing it in. And it helps the whole situation.
Yeah. And I think one of the themes that's not specifically said, but like throughout your book, you're very considerate of others. So even while you're suffering with this.
If you ask somebody for something, you can't expect them to, they might say no.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with them saying, no, I can't do this. If you still need it, ask somebody else. And it's also really good. Like you were saying, I tell about in my book, like, make a list. Like, these are the things I can do. These are the things I need help with. These are the things that I can't do. I need you to do them for me. Is there anything on these lists? If somebody can look at a list and go, oh, I can do this. I can pick up your mail once a week. I can cook a meal and bring it over once a week. And okay, I'll pay for the food. Just, can you help me out a little bit? It makes people feel good about helping you, but it's also you helping yourself at the same time to the maximum that you are able to. And when they see that you put that love and effort into your family, your friends, and yourself, it's better for everybody.
Yeah. I think it's a way to basically help the helpers. So like I love helping people I care about. Like my neighbor, I offer her help all the time. And all the neighbors around, and we're all very independent, but it's the offer that counts. But as someone who loves to help, I would love it if somebody was like, you know what, I need help, even if it was a temporary disability.
Bring up your trash can.
Yeah. So I think this applies to so many situations and so many people. Even if you just have a surgery and it's a couple weeks or a couple months, I think it's an awesome idea because people want to help, but they, like you mentioned. If like someone like me is helping somebody with a chronic disease, I should ask them, how can I help you?
Yes.
And not just try to guess and do things that they don't necessarily want me to do, and it keeps it balanced. But I like that you also discuss, make sure the caretakers are taking care of themselves.
Huge. A lot of them don't, especially with a chronic patient. Like I'm remarried and I have an amazing husband. He's like one of the best caregivers ever. Like people are like, I need a kin. But we're Ken and Barby, so it's kind of funny, but they're like, I need a Ken. he literally, when we first met, we thought I just had a shoulders, like a problem with my shoulder. We didn't know we were going to fall in love. We didn't know that I had a lifelong condition. We didn't know, I was not able to set the expectation, but he's a caregiver at heart, and he has a mom with MS. And so he knows like people need help. So he was helping out his neighbor, helping me. I couldn't drive anymore. So he would drive me to doctors and physical therapy, and we got to know each other and fell in love. But if he doesn't take care of himself first, if he isn't the whole being that he can be, then he's not fully able to help me or anybody else. And so I recognize that as a patient, to say, hey, wait, you need like a mental health break. Go over to your brother's house and watch a movie or play pool or do what you need to do so that you can mentally and physically be your strongest, so that you can help me with my needs list. And, keeping that in mind and knowing like he might have to say no on something, or a family member or a friend that's trying to help. I need help, but they're not the right person to ask. They can't offer that for you. And is it something, do you need help, or can you do it on your own? Do you need help, or do you need someone else to do it? That's like 3 different stages. But if you take some of that stuff that you can do on your own or you need help with away, and can help and manage it and spread it out to give that main caregiver a break, know that they need a break too. And that, their mental and physical health, also they go through everything the patient goes through except for the physical aspect of it. But they actually have more guilt of, why can't I take this pain away from this person I love? Why can't I do X, Y, Z, and now she's good to go again? Like, it literally plays on their emotions and their mental health as well. So they need to take care of themselves and pay attention to a caregiver burnout situation so that they don't get into that.
Yeah. So now this has been almost 20 years that you've been dealing with this?
Yep.
Or working through this?
Yes.
I'd say. So
Yep.
Now, with where you are in your life and with treatment and being more you, how do you best spend your time?
I do anything and everything I can. I like to say I'm an extreme time saver. I try to find the easiest way to accomplish something. And then if it takes more, then I give more if I can, or I say, sorry, I can't do this, and let somebody else do it. I recognize that time is different for me. So instead of having like a 24-hour day, I take everything moment by moment, and I like to do projects instead of a thing. I'm not good at something long term. That, like, even I help with the International Pain Foundation. I'm currently the president of International Pain Foundation. And even with that, I take on projects instead of having a long-term job. I focus on a project at a time and accomplish that. And then I feel like I have wins in life. I feel like I have a purpose. I know that I'm helping other people, but I get to do it in a way that when I need a break, or I need to spend a day or two or a week in bed, I can do that. And the project doesn't suffer. The people that I'm helping don't lose out because I just dropped it. I give it enough time and planning and preparation that the project can get done in the appropriate amount of time and still help people, while not putting me further back with my own health and challenges. Although, like you said, I am doing better. I went into remission in 2009, and I've been in and out of remission ever since. Remission is not a cure. I thought it was. I was ready for the cure. There is no cure, but I have learned to do more with my life and spend it doing meaningful projects now versus like there's no 9-to-5 job, because every day looks totally different than the next.
Yeah. And right now you're actually working on some legislation.
I am working with Senator Nancy Bardo here in Arizona on legislation to help chronic pain patients. In 2016, the CDC passed some guidelines for for opioid medication, and they did it to try to help people who have an addiction to opioid medication. And they did it I want to believe they did it in the hopes to help people. But what it did was it swept everybody that takes the opioid medication, whether you're taking it for a short-term thing like a pregnancy or a broken bone or injury or surgery. They swept everybody under the rug. Long-term chronic care patients that have sickle cell disease and arachnoiditis and all these medical conditions that needed an opioid medication. So tens of thousands just got cut off cold turkey, and people committed suicide. I mean, at least, there's thousands of suicide deaths. At first I was counting them and I was keeping names, and it got so sad and depressing. I was like, there has to be something else. So I've been trying to get a legislator to do legislation to help. Another advocate friend of mine, Claudia, got one up in Rhode Island passed this past year. And all of a sudden, now that one passed, now Senator Nancy Barto here in Arizona, all of a sudden was like, hey, I could do this. I could help this challenge. And she recognizes that here in Arizona, we have about 2.4 million Arizonans that live with a chronic condition that involves pain. And there's even more that are having to do surgical procedures or breaking bones or other needs for opioid medication. And even though the federal guidelines are not laws, they're just guidelines, doctors became afraid to prescribe, and insurance companies had trouble wanting to pay for opioid medication, and like so many challenges with the pharmacies not wanting to dispense the medication because nobody wanted to get in trouble. And Nancy Barto, Senator Barto, stepped up, and she actually, the book that you showed, From Wheels to Heels, she actually ordered 100 copies of the book to give out to all the legislators. After she read it, she said, every legislator in Arizona needs to read this book, so I'm going to give them one for Christmas and have them read the book. And hopefully in doing so, will help get the legislation passed in 2022 to help chronic pain patients, at least here in Arizona, but hopefully it will spread and keep spreading throughout states across the country so that we can get proper and timely access to care for chronic pain patients, because it is extremely difficult to go from being a managed care patient and feeling like you're providing some kind of benefit to society to getting cut off and having no hope and no help. And to go through that is extremely challenging. And we're hoping that we make a change, and the trend keeps changing. And instead of, I say we're on a pendulum, and society goes from like, take away all opiates or alcohol or cigarettes or whatever it is, take it away. And then they swing back and everybody should have it. And that pendulum keeps swinging. Yeah. And I would like to, with this legislation, instead of the pendulum swinging to all or nothing, I want to just go straight north. Let's all head north, get off that track, and let's go to individualized care where everybody gets what they need. And that's going to be based on what the patient and their medical provider decides. And that is going to be where the doctor has that information that they've learned in medical school, and the patient knows what they're going through on a daily basis, and they use that information and come up with what works best for them.
Yeah, I think we have an unfortunate circumstance in our country, especially recently, where things aren't a big deal to people unless it affects someone they know. So like if they don't have to care and if they can turn the blind eye, they do. The cool thing about your book is that because you are so honest in it, and because you become so human so fast, that by the time you're going in for the first surgery, I'm rooting for you, and it doesn't work, and the next surgery, and it's like it's like I'm on the roller coaster with you, and it's like so it's like
and they kept saying, do this and you'll get fixed, do this and you'll get fixed, and they were all wrong.
So I'm so glad that she's getting that book for them, because it'll put a human to what's going on instead of just turning a blind eye or, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and the book also covers a lot. I mean, opioids is one option for patients. It's a tool. And if you need it, you should have access to it. But there should be everything on the table. And it should be, if the patient is comfortable with that treatment option, as well as the provider, and you guys work together as a team to get the best care so that you can be the best human doing life and living to your fullest. And we all should have that right and opportunity. And when we don't have that, it's not just bad for the patient, but it's also bad for society.
yeah.
So, but one of the things that can help individualize healthcare, especially when it comes to medication, and this should be for every patient. And this is another, this past year, we helped pass a Newborn Screening Act. There's a federal act, but Arizona is one of the 5 states that passed stricter newborn screening. But I wanted to go another step further, but you have to take baby steps sometimes with legislation. There's a genetics test. It's called Pharmacogenomics, PGX for short. And I've gotten this pharmacogenomics test, and it literally tells you not just opioids, but every FDA medication that's approved, how you will react and respond to it, so that the doctor can look at that and know what is best for you before you even take it. So, you know, some people are allergic to penicillin, but they don't find out until they take penicillin, and then they have an anaphylactic shock reaction. This would tell you before you ever took penicillin, you'd never have to have that experience. And if we could get that test for all newborns covered by insurance for those who have insurance, it literally can change the rest of your life. I have my results. I carry them around on a USB drive. And if I'm ever in an emergency situation, they can look right on that USB and know, for this situation, this is the best medication for Barby. And they have this ability to give this test to anybody and everybody. Some insurance covers it, some doesn't. Medicare covers it. Many of the insurance companies are starting to come on board. But for those like myself that actually have these results, it covers everything: psychiatric medication, oncology. So if you had cancer, wouldn't you want to know the best cancer medication for you right at the start? It's right there in your file, and they can see it. They know, and they have genetic counselors. So if the doctor's like needs a quick answer and it's taking him too much time, he can dial the number, talk to a genetic counselor that pulls up my information on their screen and says, this is the one to give her. Boom, done. But just in case, I have it on a flash drive, in case it's, you know, an ER and they don't have that abilities for some reason, they have it right there on that flash drive, and they can see what to give me, what not to give me. And it's all based on my genetics.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know there's 3 companies that are big on those. They're even doing like liquid biopsies and stuff now, and it's all based on genetics.
Yep.
So
it's a swab in your mouth.
Yep.
There's no blood. It's a swab in your mouth. And because of the life change that it gave us, my husband started his own company doing this testing for other people.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah. And right now he's using 10 different labs across the country, but in 2022, he plans to open his own lab. So to actually do the testing and have the neuroscientists right there in the lab with him. So,
well, I know if it's I think it's long read. I know Pacific Bioscience has some new pretty portable machine. Is that one he's looking at?
It is.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see what happens with genomics in the next 5 years. You know, previously in medicine, we'd say 10 years, 20 years. I think 5 years.
Yeah. Well, even there's 10 new genetic tests coming out every week.
Yeah.
10 new genetic tests every single week. So like my husband's company, they do everything from Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the pharmacogenomics, cancer testing, cardiac testing. They do so many different genetics tests. It's just unbelievable what's coming down the pipeline. And it just continues to grow. That's why I say, if you've been doing the same thing for 5 years or more, ask. there's new things that are out there, tools that you can use in your life, resources that can change your life. Even with the valley fever that I was telling you about, I got it 2 years ago. They put me on a medication called Fluconazole, and I got 3 skin fungus infections. I was itching out of my skin. Like, oh my gosh, I would have sores from scratching and itching. And I kept telling the lung specialist, I think I'm allergic to this. And then my pharmacogenomics results came back, and it literally said on there like 8 times that I'm allergic to fluconazole. And I took it back in, and she's like, I am so sorry. She did not believe me. 10 months I took this medication because she kept telling me it's the best in the world. It's just the medication that we give everybody who gets the condition. This is the medication. And I'm actually doing better on no medication than I was doing on the medication that's the best in the world because of my genetics.
So back to your point of, if you're a zebrafish that needs water and not air, she's giving you air and you're allergic to it.
Exactly. And I literally, I mean, they were giving me medications to help with the skin ulcers and the itching. And like, they're giving me medication on top of medication instead of listening to me saying, hey, this isn't what's supposed to be happening. And I fell back into the old patterns from 2020 or from 2002 of help me, instead of using my adjectives and describing what I was going through.
But this is terrible for you because it can, I know you mentioned like injuries, like that can trigger and undo your progress for your autoimmune disease. So it's very dangerous.
It is. Yeah. As soon as I stopped taking that medication, after that 10 months, I got off of it. I got to get off of all the other medications, and I started doing better. I'm not great, but my lungs are still weak, but I am definitely doing better than I did on the medication. And it was all just came down to my genetics.
I don't think it gets to be considered medication when it does more harm than good. Pretty sure it's poison at that point.
It pretty much was poison. And, you know, it's funny because I'm allergic to OxyContin also. But I took it back in 2001 after a knee injury. And that was the first time I ever took it in my life. And I got ringing in my ears and skin reaction. And the surgeon that did my surgery said, don't take that ever again. Make sure you tell everybody you're allergic to it. Nobody questioned me on that. But then when I say this, the fluconazole it seems to make me worse. And you're making me take it twice a day. And it's literally, I'm like itching out of my skin and causing sores from the itching. And she was like, no, you got to keep taking it. You got to keep taking it until she saw in black and white on the paper, don't take that medication.
Yeah. That's such a cool field your husband's into. That's just, I can't wait to hear how it turns out and just how it grows and so much potential.
It's growing and growing. And our friends are like, well, maybe we should get into that business. I'm like, everybody, even if you don't get into the business of pharmacogenomics, get the test.
Yeah.
It literally takes you from childbirth. Whenever you get the test till you pass away, it can be helpful in your care and help you get the right care for you specifically. That's the best individualized healthcare I've ever heard.
Back to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and if it makes it easy for doctors, I think it'll make it so much quicker to adopt.
Yep.
I mean,
it is. And it also takes some of the liability off a doctor. There's no more, let's try this. This is going to work for you. This is not going to work for you. And that to me is helpful and beneficial to the doctors as well.
Yeah. Well,
especially if you have a rare disease and they aren't even able to diagnose it.
Yeah.
But yet they know like your collection of symptoms, they can kind of get in the ballpark and say, okay, this one works on those symptoms for you.
Well, at least not hurting you or causing other symptoms, you know, because that can be distracting.
Exacerbating the rare disease, right?
Yeah. One thing too, in the system we basically have now, everything is slow. You know, you go to your doctor for something, they send you for a test or an ultrasound or whatever, you're looking at like 2 weeks, and then you got to go back and follow up because they won't tell you what they found. It's like you're looking at like a month. Yeah. So it's like the turnaround time is terrible. So if they can basically get that information quickly, what does and doesn't work, I think that'll expedite things.
Yeah.
And that's never a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. The only time telehealth is like really popular now. I've been using telehealth since 2015. So before it was popular. I've been using it, and I was having chest pains in my breast, and so I told my primary care doctor, and he ordered a test, and he referred me to an oncologist. And the radiologist read the results and accidentally emailed them to me instead of my doctor or my oncologist. That is when it's not good. When you find out really fast, but you don't have anybody to ask questions. Like I literally was like, oh my God, I just got a text saying I have breast cancer. And what am I supposed to do? And I'm calling my doctor, and he doesn't know why I'm like calling in a panic. And it was, so to find out as a patient in that kind of circumstance was like not the right. I could have waited till Monday to find out.
Yeah.
From a doctor. So yeah, I definitely want fast results, but I also need guidance as well.
That absolutely makes sense. And I think that I haven't done telehealth, but I like the My Chart feature. It's pretty handy.
Yes, the portal.
I don't necessarily know that I like seeing every note the doctor writes, but I mean, I'd rather take it than leave it, I guess. But but it's like I think that's come a little bit farther than the accidental emailing.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Terrible.
My medical records, if you stack them from the floor up, it's 4 feet high. Wow. So I'm what they call a thick file case. That's a very thick file.
Yeah.
And there's times when I'm able to appeal insurance, like if they're taking their time on a prior authorization, or they're wanting me to try a medication that I've already tried and failed. Well, now I have the pharmacogenomics. But before that, I would grab my own records, photocopy them, send them in, and get approval faster. And I didn't have to burden my doctor with the situation. But it literally, I forgot my point of why I'm telling you, but I have like 4 feet tall of medical records, and I have it all. Oh, the portals.
Yeah.
It's very good to know. Like when I started ordering my medical records and going through them, there would be stuff like patient here for her left foot. And I literally was there for my right shoulder in my records. Like, how do you get that big of a body part? I can understand left side versus right, but like a totally different body part for why you're there. And things like that can affect your future care. If you're unconscious, or you get in a car accident or low blood sugar and pass out or whatever, and they don't know what to do for you, they're going to go back through that same portal and look at that information. And if that information is incorrect, it changes the care that you receive. So it's really important as a patient to read your medical records. And now we have even better access with the patient portals to read them and make corrections if need be as to what we're going through. Or if your doctor tried you on a new medication and you don't have a pharmacogenomics test, and you took it for 5 days and had reactions to it, they don't have anybody. Another thing that we're working on is legislation to update the PDMPs, because right now the prescription monitoring programs in each state except Missouri. But to update those, because right now there's no set person to update it. So if you go to the hospital and you're unconscious and you can't say, no, I don't take that medication, they're going to give it to you because it tells them in the computer that they're supposed to be giving you that medication.
Oh, so it could be something you are allergic to and they don't know it.
And they don't know it because nobody updated the PDMP.
Yeah. Ooh.
So
yeah, so
we're working on that issue as well.
Yeah, so I think portals are definitely. I'm grateful for portals. Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense now too. So at this point, what do you do to kind of build up your happiness and to kind of recenter when you've got time?
Oh goodness, I love my husband drones. He got a pilot's license to drone. I can drone with him on his license, but I specifically didn't get my own so he could have something of his own. as my caregiver. But I like to do it with him. I also like to watch reality television. That's like a guilty pleasure. I've been on reality television, so I know the behind the scenes. And I've also got to do some like in-person appearances with other reality stars. They say reality personalities. We're not really stars, but we get to like go do stuff. So I see them, and I know a lot of them and the behind the scenes, and so I like to watch the reality for like a guilty pleasure, and spend time with my husband. And I like playing pool, and I like the hot tub, and I try to do things that help me get out of the thought of living with chronic pain, and things like laughter is the best medicine. So I like comedies and comedy shows and things that are positive and happy to surround me as much as I can. So
right on.
And I also like VR, but I have seizures, so I can't just watch anything in the VR. My husband and I have made some VR material that I can watch. So I like to do that. And but I also like, he'll watch stuff and say, yeah, this is safe for you to watch. So I have to be careful with that type of thing. But I like VR stuff as well. Virtual reality, where you just go into this other world and can explore and see the dinosaurs and pet them. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about eye pain before we go?
Yes. So also for fun, but really more to help people. I feel like it's my purpose on earth. I was a physical cheerleader. Now I'm a mental cheerleader. And part of being a mental cheerleader, my family actually started International Pain Foundation in 2006. And they said, if I'm having this much trouble, and my stepsister, who also happened to have RSD, passed away in 2006 from complications. They said, if you're having this much trouble, then other people are having trouble. So let's do something to help them. And out of that grew the International Pain Foundation. And we do 4 areas of focus: education, awareness, social events, and access to care. And we have projects under each of those umbrellas. And I do a little bit of each thing as I can, as much as I can. And a lot of times I'm just guiding other people to help with projects, and other people have ideas that are like, oh, I want to do I give a care, run, walk, roll. Okay, how do we do that? Let's put it together. And it's really a lot of fun, but we have those 4 areas. And if it is a project that falls within those 4 areas, then we take them on. So education for patients, caregivers, and providers, social events for patients, because we isolate ourselves a lot. And we need to have, people say social distancing, but I say, no, we need physical distancing. We need to socially stay together. And so we have that aspect. We have our awareness campaigns for the public, and then access to care to get the tools and the resources that we need for patients to get the best care that helps them live their best life.
That is wonderful. I will definitely link that. Yeah, and just thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed your book. I'm so impressed by how honest and just real you are, and how much you've handled and just lived through, and you are incredible.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for reading my book and having me on your show today. And I just wish all the best for your podcast, and I hope it keeps going and growing, and you just keep on winning and doing great things, because every time you have a guest on, you're helping us. So everybody should go and give you a 5-star rating and tell you how awesome you are for what you're doing.
Thank you.
And know that we appreciate it as well.
Thank you. All right.